Welcome back to another episode of Meredith with a Y. I am your host, Meredith Willits, and today's episode, I'm honored to welcome Congresswoman Marie Newman, a powerhouse in politics, activism, and advocacy, a former U.S. representative, nonprofit CEO, marketing executive, and author of When Your Child is Being Bullied. Marie has spent her career building movements and solving the toughest problems, from gun reform and women's rights to LGBTQ plus advocacy and economic equality. Her work has been featured across major networks like MSNBC, CNN, Fox, NBC, ABC, CBS, and PBS. And she's been interviewed by top publications including the New York Times, Elle, Teen Vogue, The New Yorker, Washington Post, USA Today, Chicago Tribune, and the Chicago Sun-Times. With her memoir, A Life Made from Scratch, just released in March, and a new podcast and fiction novel on the horizon, Congresswoman Newman proves that when the solution doesn't exist, you build it from scratch. Stay with us. Hello, everyone. This is Meredith with a Y, and I am your host, Meredith Willits. Today, we are going to go deep, changing lives, and I am giving you the keys to the castle. I mean, I think after that introduction, we can just go home.
Sounds great.
I mean, and thanks for coming, everyone. This is all we need to do here today. I mean, stop it. That's crazy. Thank you for coming on.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Thrilled to chat today.
So your latest endeavor, I mean, not the ones that are coming up because we still have that, but right now it's A Life Made from Scratch. So I do want to get into all the activism. I do want to get into the Congresswoman title, but A Life Made from Scratch is really why you're here. So let's talk about the new book.
Sure. It always starts at the beginning, right? Is that somebody came up to me as I was leaving Congress, and a few publishers said, "Hey, you should write a book. You've had some unique experiences." To which I said, I'm not sure I would read that book. That sounds kind of boring. I'm not sure I would. And my team kicked it around for a while, and every team I've had, whether I was a CEO or in Congress, I've always told them, you know what, when we don't see the solutions in the world that we need, we build it from scratch. So let's get to it. Right. And so they really loved that. And then, we started talking about some movements, some coalitions, work that I've done that built something from zero. Right. And we all do that, though. I'm not different than most women, right? Everyone on this call has built something from scratch. So I thought by coalescing it all in one place and giving some lessons, and then I have a series of workbooks and guides that go along with it that help you plan your change or plan your big coalition or your small business or whatever. So that's why I did it.
So I guess the question really on this podcast anyways, or why, who are your parents? Why did you start this life of service and this life of transformation when it comes to women and LGBTQ plus and, gun reform? Why are you this person?
So interesting. So I grew up in a pretty conservative house, right? But what I did get drummed into me is hard work and work ethic, right? And that you have to make your own way in the world and be independent, work hard, all of those things. And, I had great examples in both my parents. But what was interesting is that as much as they believed in volunteering and helping others and really stayed close to their faith, I grew up in a highly Catholic household, they really shied away from public service and making waves, right? They did not like to make waves. They did not. So on one hand, many of the things led me down the path that how I grew up. But then, my mom used to say to me, starting in middle school, "You exhaust me. Why are you worrying about that? That's silly. You can't do anything."
Yeah.
And I always say, "Oh, but I can."
Oh, you're the stone that you were in your mother's shoe, right?
That she could not get out, right?
She just could not dump that stone out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you think of that as hey, mom, dad, you're being complacent? Are you being a victim? Are you being too polite? I know, like, I don't know if you're a WASP like myself, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, but you're Catholic, same energy.
Oh,
Um,
it can be.
yeah, but like, did you see that as being like, how can you just watch? How can you just stand by and see those things happen? And did that like just like, are you a Scorpio or something?
Yeah. No, so I'm an Aries, so, just ridiculously driven, right, and a huge amount of energy, and so I, absolutely that just infuriated me as much as my parents are good people, right? Like, I would just be like, "You're so defeatist, right? You're so defeatist. Why does it have to be that way?" And so I constantly was asking why. I started, doing volunteer work in high school, and kept going, and fighting for all the fights that I believe in. And if you had asked me even 12, 13 years ago, if I was going to run for office, I would laugh at you and say, you know what, I've never even run for student council. Like, oh my God, you're high, you know? And I did because it needed to be done. So I have this other saying is that, we're all sitting at the party and there's a sticky ball in the middle of the room and it's gross and everybody keeps walking way around it politely, right? Well, I'm usually the only one to go pick up that sticky ball. So I'm not qualified to manage that sticky ball. Um, but someone's got to do it, right? And usually when it bugs you enough, that means that while you don't feel qualified, that you are the one that is designated to do that. And you do need to do it.
And that just has to come from, like, I don't know, like, when I'm talking to you, because I've never had that. I've always been the more like your parents, like, I don't wanna make waves, I don't wanna upset
Mhm.
people. Like,
Mhm.
like, right now, politically, I feel, and I am sure many, many people that are listening to this right now feel extremely helpless,
Yeah.
extremely overwhelmed. They tell us online, like, "Don't shop Amazon." I'm, like, texting all my kids, like, "Don't shop Amazon, it's the least we can do," like
Yeah. Yeah.
like, that's my kind of activism. When I
Which
think
is big,
about,
by
and
the way, and because that affects your whole family, right? So don't belittle the fact that you're doing that. Bravo on your family.
yeah, no, I mean, and that's something we can do, we vote with your dollar every single day.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people that are listening are like, "How did you go from volunteering in high school or being an activist in high school?"
Mhm.
I remember I was one of the first people out the door when we did a walkout for, our teachers in high school. Like, I remember standing at that door, like, going, "Is anyone else gonna go out the front door? Are you
Right.
going? Because if I
Right.
walk out this door, I'm probably gonna get a suspension or whatever,"
Right.
right?
Right, right.
So, what takes you from that person to, "Holy crap, I'm gonna run for office"? Also, what keeps you from going, "Oh, yeah, I can't do that"? Because I've talked to my husband, I'm like, "I think I'm gonna run for something," right? Because I see the problem, and
Mhm.
then I go, "They're gonna dig up my family, they're gonna dig up my past, this is overwhelming, I'm gonna get crushed," and just that crushing feeling, like,
Yeah.
how did you not run for the
Yeah. No, and look, they did do all of that to me, and sadly my own party did, right? So, you do have to there's a greater good always, right, that we're focused toward. And so I think I was just always focused on that. And the first time I ran, I lost by 2%, and then I beat four guys in a primary, including an incumbent, by 4%, right? So,
Wow.
you know, it it does take a lot of work and it's a lot of tenacity and a lot of you do have to have a very, very thick skin. Candidates come to me every day and are like, well, how did you manage? And I said, you just have to literally let it roll right off and not worry about it. But I do remember something back to your original question about like, where did that come from? I do remember the story. Like, I hate bullies. Like, since I was a little girl, I freaking hate them. I'll tell you two quick stories, childhood stories.
Okay,
So
please.
my uh, my brother and my one of my sisters and I would walk to grammar school together. And one day, this group of boys that were like sixth graders went after my brother, that was a fifth grader, and he was kind of a small kid. And prior to backpacks, we had, pink bags that we carried our books in. So they were book bags, right? And these these kids were so nasty, and they started beating them up. And so my sister and I came out swinging and just started whacking them because I had books in the bag, right? And, I'm tiny, because I was a tiny person when I was young. And I was like a crazy spinning devil, and so they all, and I was like, oh, I like how that feels.
It felt good inside. I want to do that again.
And for the record, nobody got hurt badly. I more scared them than anything else,
Yeah.
because I was acting like a lunatic. And so, but then another time, I was a freshman in high school, and you know how when you're a freshman, you feel like everyone's watching you, and no one cares, like really, but like everyone's watching you. And so we're at lunch. I'm with a bunch of girlfriends, and the senior football players are making fun of the special resource kids 2 tables away, and I was like,
Mhm.
mm-mm. No, not on my watch. No, ma'am. And so I went over there and let them all have it for like 5 minutes. I screamed at them. And my girlfriends are like, oh my God, you have ruined your high school career. You have ruined yourself. And I didn't. I ended up going to homecoming with one of the football players. But,
Stop it.
yeah, it was funny. But that I'm not afraid to speak up when there's wrongdoing going on. I'm just not. And I don't care what others think. I really don't. Like, there's good and bad about that. We all know that on this call, right? Is that I don't care what people think. I absolutely don't care. When I'm doing the right thing, it's never the wrong time to do the right thing. So that really is what my North Star is.
I just got off the phone with a client, I swear, and we were talking about exactly what we're talking about here. And she's a young woman in her 20s.
Mhm.
And I was explaining to her about how that fear to speak up is actually a survival instinct. Like it is a survival instinct to not upset men so that we can find a good partner, to be likable in society. So if we need something, it comes to us. Like it is like the reptilian survival to be
Yeah.
liked.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm wondering, as you tell me the story of the swinging pink book bag, did you learn in that moment that that survival instinct of protect, attack, stand up for was equal to being liked? But like you learned in that moment a new way to survive, a new way to adapt, a new way to exist that most of us, maybe women, don't learn at that young age. Because of that moment, you literally reprogrammed your entire brain, I'm wondering, because most of us learn just like stay small, stay safe, stay small, stay safe, under
Yeah.
the radar.
Yeah.
If you go up to, like, I know you live in the area here, but if you go up to Hinsdale Central, I joke with my kids. I'm like, oh, is this the door that everyone walks into that wears sweatpants, sweatshirts, and Lululemon pants and white gym shoes? Because they all walk in looking exactly the same. Like this is the survival instinct of like under the radar. You don't,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not like when we went to school in skirts and pants and culottes and jeans and shorts or whatever. It's one look going through the front door. So I'm wondering if in that moment with the pink book bag and you came out swinging and you survived it,
Yeah.
if it changed all of your programming as a woman especially, but
Yeah.
as a person that went, that didn't kill me. Let's do that again. Not only did it not kill me, it felt really freaking good.
Yeah. I think it did change me when I took that chance. And like all of us, there's skills we all have to develop, and there are skills I had to develop too. Um, and so that was one of them that I turned the imprint on my central nervous system, right? So um, you may know about epigenetics.
Mhm.
Epigenetics is the science of when a former ancestor, decades or centuries away, had trauma, right? It is now on your central nervous system. It
Yeah.
is imprinted as part of your DNA. And the way you break that is by breaking it, right? So you break the cycle. So it's a little bit like domestic abuse and all the other scourges of our society, is that you break it by breaking it, by stopping it. You end the cycle, right?
Yeah.
And so what I decided right there is that I am not going to be victimized here. Like, no, ma'am, not today, not on my watch. And so um, I have just made a pattern of that. My son was deeply bullied to the point of needing therapy, hospitalization, and everything. And so
Wow.
I turned that around and said, "Oh no, there's others that this is happening to," and that's what changed me. I'll tell you another quick story. Lived
Please.
in a different suburb than I do now, and was a lovely place and still is, and I have dear friends there still. But they had a problem. They had a problem with bullying, right? And nobody wanted to talk about it because, it's Mayberry, and this is like 14 years ago. And one time it got to the point where my son came home one day, and it was such a bad bullying problem. He's like, "Mom, I have a great idea."
Oh God.
I know, right?
Yep.
Like, "Okay, honey, go ahead, because all ideas are good." um, he said, "What if I get in a terrible car accident and I
Yep.
come back as a different person?" And I was like, "Oh, honey," and so I knew right there that I'd
Yeah.
go reach into the mama closet and pull out the sword, and I need to start, making some headway. And so we did. A friend of mine and I started talking. She had the same problem with her child. And then one day I just opened up at a PTA meeting and then a community meeting and said, "Yeah, lots of bullying going on. Here's what's happening to my child." And everyone was like, "Wow." That night I get home at like 7. I had 60 calls on a community of 40,000 people. Hey, that's happening to my child too. And tears and one suicide attempt. It was horrible. Right. So that's when I decided, okay, got to build a system, an anti-bullying system here in this district. Got to get to the superintendent. Got to get to the board of education. And then I would, Governor Pat Quinn assigned me to a board that developed a anti-bullying manual for the state of Illinois. Helped pass a law here. Did Obama's summit. Wrote a book. Started an organization called Team Up to Stop Bullying. So it's again back to the stop the cycle. I am going to empower myself to stop the cycle.
And what I'm hearing is problem. And instead of sitting there freaking out, and you might have had 2 bottles of wine, and just, drowning yourself in it, because
Mm.
I know for a fact that that conversation your son had was not about coming back as another person. It was about getting in the car accident. And instead of focusing solely on, well, how can I change my son? You
Mhm.
said, this is a systemic problem.
Yeah.
And now what can we do about it? Which is to a life made from scratch, is taking that thing and saying, well, what can we do actually about it? And taking action. And I think that when we look at society today, we are constantly ingesting problems.
Yeah.
It's breaking news, problematic, it's tsunami, literally, physically, or, emotionally,
Mhm.
energetically. And we a lot of times don't know what actions to take. So we become keyboard warriors and, attack online,
Yeah.
or we ingest and hold on to all of those stressors. And what I'm hearing from you is you've created an entire life out of taking action, out of taking the thing and not just like becoming a keyboard warrior and then that's the end of it. You like, I'm going to the school board meeting. I'm going to do something big,
Mhm.
and talk about it. And I think that right now in society, so often we're not talking about it in public. We're talking about it only on social media. We're talking about it only amongst maybe our spouse. Like, 'cause now we can't even really talk about politics because it turns explosive.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It is unfortunate. And this goes back interestingly about that generational epigenetics study. We were taught when we were very young to not talk about politics,
or
don't talk
religion.
about sex, and don't talk about religion, and don't talk about money.
Yeah, ever. And now look what they're saying. They're saying, um, it's not illegal to talk and tell your coworkers what you make money wise.
Yeah.
Because who did it protect for all of us to keep our mouths shut about what we were making?
Men. Yeah. It sure did. Very effective. I mean, well, and what's funny is in Europe, I have lots of friends in Europe that they talk about politics and they're on the opposite end of a friend. And it's a very convivial thing because it's natural and normal. And so in societally, they were told, yeah, talk about politics, get it out, talk. You can learn things from each other and you don't have to be mean and cruel, you know? So it is sadly a societal thing that we developed in this country that's very unfortunate.
Well, I think it's, when people start calling names, and at the top, when people are calling names, and it's just like your character is, you're a bad person, you're stupid,
Yeah.
you're dumb, you're worthless, you're whatever, deplorables, yada, on either side.
Right.
I think that's when it starts to get tricky. It gets away from the topic and it becomes personal. It becomes a character flaw, which, as you had said just a minute ago, you said we're all working towards the greater good. And so I'm asking you, what is that greater good that you're working towards? Because I think in this day and age, we like to think that we all have the same greater good, but I'm not really sure that we all do. So what's yours?
Yeah. So my other North Star is kind of equity for all, that inherently in the US, we are all hard workers, right? And by hard work, we should all have a fair ability to do well with hard work, right? So for me, um, my everyday is about how can I make healthcare fairer? How can I make the economy fairer? How can I make communities fairer for our kids? And it's getting rid of bullies. I just don't like bullies. So, like, wherever I can do away with bullies or point out bullies or call out bullies, I do. And that's what I did in Congress. I ran against a bully, and I ran against the Chicago machine and won. And who was I? I was a marketing executive from the suburbs, like, who nobody knew me, and ran and won. So everybody can do this. I'm not unique in any way. In fact, I'm very not unique. It does take hard work. So for me, I want transformationally, because right now, interestingly, in our country, we have learned very solidly, and it's been replicated in 20 studies now in the last 2 months. About 60% of the country doesn't care about if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or whatever. If you are solving these three top problems that I have, like, everything costs too much, I don't have strong health care, I can't afford my housing, and whatever else it is, right? We should all be solving those problems together, and everybody in and nobody out. Like, that's the principle of getting rid of bullies, right? Like, people that want to bully one group, and I don't care what the group is, we don't have time for that in Team America. So let's be Team America, everybody in and not everybody out, or choosing people or picking on people.
But do you think that that's hard when instead of looking at the inherent actual issue of the problem, we do blame groups because it's easier. It's easier to blame the other. I know for myself, I don't think in 52 years of my life I've ever come into a kerfluffle with an LGBTQ plus person. Like, ever. Like, it's not even on my radar, but it's such a huge topic in America as being a problem when it makes up such a small percentage. And I'm betting that 99.999% of the people that have an issue with LGBTQ plus people are in my shoes and have never had a scuffle, kerfluffle, issue with, probably never come in contact with, don't follow them on social media. Why do you think they've chosen, because I know you do speaking engagements to the LGBTQ plus communities in those groups, why do you think that we have chosen that group as one of the targets?
I think it's a wide variety of reasons, but in general, it's what you just expressed, right? Brilliantly, is that they don't know anybody that's LGBTQ plus, or they know someone and they don't know they're LGBTQ, and they probably really like that person, right? So my daughter is trans, right? And so I talk about it very openly. I talk about mental health very openly. It's back to the idea, if we just all talked about our story, everyone comes to me and said, Marie, what can I do? What's my everyday activism? Because I don't have time. I have 2 jobs. I have 4 kids, and I have, a sick mom. And what can I do? I said, you can tell your one story about your family, your friend, a loved one, or a neighbor, or whatever, that helps someone else understand that the dilemma you're in. So my mom's best friend is depending on Medicaid for her long-term palliative care, almost hospice care, and it is likely going to get taken away in a very short amount of time. And so I tell the story of this woman who's amazing. She's such a lovely person, and she's not going to have the care she needs. Are you going to feel good about that if you support someone who takes away Medicaid? I just, it's really, tell that one story, because no one reacts to data anymore. They don't. Like, as much as I love it, I'm a former management consultant. I love data and I love process. Like, I keep telling everybody, I will kill you in your sleep if you talk about data and process. I will. So tell your story. Tell that very personal story about your daughter who's trans, your mom who's dying, your Your friend is cancer, and now, and this is true, I have a friend that her clinical trial was just taken away because the NIH money was taken away. Tell that story. Tell who she is, how she feels right now, how her family is terrorized. Tell that story. The other person is going to be highly affected by that. So tell your story.
No, I agree with that. I don't know if you saw, but I think that they pulled the tariffs with China for the next 90 days. I don't know if you saw that this morning. I think that came out early this morning. And I do believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that was because of the stories that are being told of
Small
I
business.
have 100%, I have this American business, and my inventory that's coming in went from $30,000 to $200,000, and my American company that employs 50 people is going to go out of business today.
Yeah.
If these tariffs continue. And I think that story being told over and over and over, and it's not an opinion. I think the hard part when we're talking about this, because I have talked about on social media, I have a pretty decent following.
Yeah.
Is, hey, I know people that are in the VA that now can't get a mental health appointment for a year. I know people that their psychiatrists have called them and said, sorry, I'm out.
Yeah.
8,000, I think, mental health care VA employees have been fired, and a lot of them are in the mental health
Closer
field.
to 20. It's closer to 20,000. Yeah.
20,000. Okay, thank you. And all I get as response is fake news. It's not happening. You're lying. And I've talked about that here before. Is fake news was the greatest grift, con, whatever that was ever created, because we can say anything we want and they say fake news. And it's that, I think, is what separates us, is that we've moved from facts to this weird gray place where there is and then there isn't, and then you're lying, and then even if you do bring facts, so like even if you're saying something that does have consistency, it does have weight, it does have reality of, like you said, the NIH, people are losing Medicaid, and things of that, you're lying.
That legislators will lie, lawmakers, members of Congress will lie, right? So I'll give you an example. This morning I heard this member of Congress talking about the Medicaid cuts, and he said, no, we're just adding work requirements. So 91% of people that receive Medicaid can't work because of a disability. They have 74 kids, or they have family issues, or they're millions of things, right? So over 90% can't work. So if you put work requirements on that 90% that literally physically can't work, then you are cutting 90% of Medicaid. So you can, excuse me, I hope we don't mind swearing on the show,
No,
but
if
we can bullshit all we want, right? That's that. And it's not a fact. Read the story. That's why I'm back to the story idea, right? I tell the story of someone physical that I know that I can point to and hug.
Yep.
This is what's happening to this person. How do you feel about that?
They'll say they're being paid. I have people that I have had on my other podcast, and they're like, this person is paid. They're paid by the Democratic Party. They're paid. I mean,
I always love, that's my kind of favorite one, because when they do that on my feed, I have a decent sized following too. And these super far right folks come in who are paid.
Yeah.
And come in and say that I'm paid. And I said, you know what? I love my $5 million check I got from George Soros. I am so rich. I absolutely love
it. I'm always like, I wish, can you show me where that money's coming in? Because I 100% am not being paid.
Yeah.
But I think that's the problem, is that we've wormed into this weird place that even if you do bring up, I had someone commenting, like I said that they're cutting funding for research for cancer and Alzheimer's. And they're like, that's a lie. Show me where the money's gone.
Yeah.
And for cancer research, because they're like, there has a cure for it. It's like, we do have a cure for it. It's called the cure that fixed the lumpectomy, chemo, radiation, better chemo.
Came from the NIH, by the way, just so you know, it's all of our major breakthroughs come through because we fund a wide variety of different types of very brilliant scientists, and we don't care if they're red, white, or blue, right?
Yes.
We don't care. And so now all of that is gone. It has set back our scientific and innovative community probably by 20 years just in the last few months.
Yeah. And how are you? So now you're Out of Congress. So you're out of that real, do you feel you're out of the meat and potatoes of change, or do you feel like you've just changed meat and potatoes?
I think I've changed meat and potatoes. Great way to say it, by the way. Yeah, like it is. That's true. Like I changed my table setting, right? And so now I really concentrate on, I do some healthcare consulting that helps organizations that want to build solutions around those that have less, right? So folks that are on Medicaid and Medicare have greater access to more types of medical care, right? And so I work with companies that do that, the kind of social impact work. So it's like a social impact organization, and I do work with them. I also I have this book coming out now, a life made from scratch, that helps people understand the blueprint of life, right? Like you can make a big pivot in your life. Like right now, if you are an accountant, but gosh, I've got this idea to solve disability access in this nation, go for it. It's about planning your path. It's about building the blueprint, right? And building your solution. So honestly, that's the real reason I wrote the book. I also wanted to reveal, don't let bullies get you down, right? Just don't. So now I don't have bullies at my table setting anywhere, and I call out bullies everywhere. And so whether it is with my books, I have another book coming out next year, or it is with the activism. I do a lot of speaking engagements for every type of group, people, nonprofits, LGBTQ groups, parenting groups, family groups, women's groups, all of it, right? And I help them understand these things are very doable, because there's a lot of brilliant people in the world that are willing to work hard. So let's all work hard together and get this stuff done. So I changed my table setting and work on those things that I really care about.
And I think that, like what you said, like I don't have bullies around me. We hear over and over again, you are who you hang around with. We've all heard that. Like since we've been, like, I know I heard it as a kid, but I didn't realize like you aren't just sort of who you hang out with. You are. You will become.
Oh.
They are an extension. They are your mirror. If you want to know where you are today on the planet, look around your friends, and that will tell you how much money you make, the way you speak, the way you eat, the way you exercise, where you're headed, etc.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because in my journey in politics, I volunteered in politics for probably 25 years before I got into politics proper and became a politician. And now I'm not. And I still am an activist. I've always been an activist for the last 30 years, right? But I actually, over the last, I would say 10 or 15 years, lost a couple of very close friends because of their how they feel about immigration, how they're xenophobic, they're, honestly racist. I had to have that reckoning. Well, I can't keep sweeping that under the rug and keep excusing your racist behavior and your racist talk, right? Like I can't do it anymore. So it does get to a time of choosing, right? And it's heartbreaking when you love that person, right? And you don't have to cut them off, but you can say like, I can't be around it. I really can't be around.
Yeah, because it affects your sinew, your nervous system. Like it's like,
yeah.
And I always say, the worst person you can gaslight is yourself.
Yeah.
Is like, it's okay. Is it? It's can you?
Yeah.
Talking about your book, speaking about this idea of building a life from scratch, I've actually had quite a few people on recently that are talking about changing your path, where you've been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years, you've been in the corporate world, you want to get into corporate world, you want to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So what is some advice that you would have to men or women or anyone who is waking up post-COVID, realizing you do have a choice of what you want your world to look like? What's some advice that you or your book give to make those changes, take an idea or a feeling or a belief and building on it and making it become a reality?
So dreams never scream. They start with a whisper, and it usually starts way back here, right? And it starts rounding the bend, and then it's really yelling at you, right? And it happens over time and kind of insidiously. By the time it's in your face and yelling at you, you do have to do something about it. So if you're again, I'll use the accountant analogy. And by the way, I'm biggest fan of accountants. Keep doing. We need all the accountants. God bless you. I love
counting. Keep counting.
Yeah, right. Keep accounting, and we desperately need them. But if you are an accountant that is thinking, gosh, I really have this nonprofit idea. I really want to get into politics. I really want to teach kids. Like, I want to change my career and become a math teacher, whatever it is. If that dream is starting way back here and it's just hanging with you, honestly, I just have to tell you, you have to do it. You have to. You'll never be happy till you address this thing. And, as my husband would say, for you, that happens every 2 years. So I
Well,
always do
if
something.
you look at people having children, a lot of times it's every 2 years they get like, I either need a dog or a kid,
Right.
or a move. Like every
Right.
2 years, that
Yeah.
cycle kind of goes, go do something with your life.
Right. It just is. And so by the time it gets very vibrant and animated in your life, you do have to do something, right? And what my book does is that it gives you a bunch of anecdotes about my life and some lessons learned, like, hey, don't do this dumb thing I did, but do this, right? But there's no right or wrong way. My way is just a way, but there are some classic pieces to it, right? You have got to really identify the problem, quantify it, understand it, right? You've got to do research on it. You've got to talk to some experts, and then you've got to put a plan together. So a lot of people will call me for leadership skill presentations or talks. I'm like, I'm not a leadership expert. You know what I am? I'm a good planning expert. I can tell you how to bring your plan to life, right? So come to me when you need some super dorky, yummy process planning. That's when you need me.
How has your activism and the fire that kind of lives inside of you that makes you tick and maybe is annoying to others, maybe overwhelming, because honestly, I'll be like, all right, we're rearranging the whole house. All the furniture has got to go. Like I went to the Hinsdale kitchen walk the other day, and I'm like on Chat GPT, like, make this room whimsical with more color, and like taking photos. My husband's in Iowa. He's gonna come home and be like, what are we doing? Why are there pink pillows in the family? Like, what's going on? So like, yeah, here it is. How has this affected your child or children and your family being this scratch, itch, whatever you want to call it, catalyst of fire to the world? Especially, with, you said you have a trans daughter, you said. How does that affect her? Like, I know with my social media, a lot of times my kids are like, Mom, like, can we just
pull it back 3 notches?
Can we not,
And interestingly, they've never said that. But I will tell you one story that addresses that. So when my daughter's now 24, and when she was, probably 10 or 11, she started to get very depressed, and it's puberty time, right? So of course it's the normal thing. And it's when she was male, right? So very depressed and getting worse and worse. We try 17 different therapist groups, programs, activities, trips, places, blah, blah, we try everything. Fast forward to the day before graduation from 8th grade, she came down and said, you know what, I know. But during this time, by the way, so painful to be around. Like, I'm just being honest. We're honest in our family. It's like, when you're that depressed and that sad, you're mean and disrespectful a lot, right? And so my husband and I had a talk with, at that point, him, and went upstairs, came back down and said, well, I think I have 2 options for you, Mom. I can either just run away, I know I'm a hassle, or I can kill myself. And at that point, she didn't know she was she. The good news is, obviously slept with her that night and protected her. And we got her into a program right away, the day after graduation. And about a week in, she comes home from group session and says, Mom, I think I know what it is. And she said, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl, and my name is Evie. And I was like, yay!
I'll take it.
Yeah, right. Thank God we figured it out. Then fast forward several months, because you could tell it was bothering her for a long time. And so I just said to her one day, I said, honey, why didn't you know that I'm so open and accepting? You clearly, you know that. And she's like, oh no. She said, I just know you, and you are a fire starter. So I know that, like, as soon as I told you, you would be like, let's go.
Fun shopping. Yeah. What do we need to do
So
next?
that
Yep.
kind of answers the question, right? Like my kids know, like, okay, be careful what you tell her because she's gonna fix it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you were just saying that, first of all, it breaks my heart, and that there's thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of kids out there that are about to lose that right, and that families are about to lose the rights to
Yeah.
be able to exist inside of the orb
Yeah.
of their own families, of what is best for them and their children.
Right.
Um, but when you were just saying that, and such a poignant moment at the end of 8th grade, right? Because my son's getting ready to graduate 8th grade. And it's so monumental in so many ways, into adulthood, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that your child, that he, then she, was
Yeah.
so honest. And honestly, when I'm listening to her, she did die that day. Her old self did,
Yeah.
and her new self was born. And how many of us have been allowed that old self of hate and shame and doubt and self-hatred and low self-esteem to die, and say, I'm not doing this anymore for anybody's eyes, for anybody's expectations. And we have to be born again into our own self, and so congratulations to you as a family for being there, being open, and wherever you sent her, kudos, good Lord, like, to
Yeah.
be able to figure all that out.
It was a day program that I'm forever indebted to. So yeah, it was wonderful. And it's interesting. This is what a lot of times trans families will call me and say, "Hey, my son or daughter just came out, or they're non-binary, or whatever it might be." And I usually coach them. I said, and usually in like the second session, what I say is, now there's going to be a day when you realize that you have lost your old child,
Yep.
and that person, in a way, it's a death, right? And it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. Because I had one day, like it was about 8 weeks after Evie came out, and I was at the kitchen. I was just scrubbing down the counters, doing my thing in the morning, summertime, and it just
Yep.
grabbed me, and literally, I went to my knees. Like I just started bawling hysterically, and I had to make up an excuse about an urgent errand, go out, and I cried in my car in a Mariano's parking lot, like because I didn't want her to see me crying. And so that happens to parents, like, and it's okay because it is a death, and then they are a different person, and so you have a new child, but it's not the old child.
Yeah, and I don't think people, I think maybe that's the fear, as I'm looking at it, that's coming up during maybe the conversation, is like, what do I do with my hands now? Like, I don't know what to do with you. Like, I don't know how to manage this and my emotions and your physicality and whatever. Like, what does this mean?
Mhm.
In that transition of change, just change.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't care what it is. Like,
yeah,
from you believe your child to be straight, and
yeah,
now you know your child is not straight, not gay or queer or whatever. So that dream, that reality that you've assigned to your ego and your family life, has now shifted,
yeah,
and all that comes with that shift is very real. The dream has changed,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
that it. I mean, it's like getting a divorce. You
yeah,
saw your whole life in front of you when you got married. You saw the kids, the house, the picket fence, the college tuition. You saw your life, and then during a divorce, that dream dies, and we have to regroup. And so I think that is very important for people to understand. I'm sure that's what a lot of us are going through every single day, as we are figuring out, like, wait a minute, maybe I don't want to be in corporate America.
yeah.
Maybe I do want to, I don't know, be a farmer or whatever. And
Could be.
we have these dreams in our head, not only for our children, but for our lives, for our spouses, for ourselves.
Mhm.
And I love the fact that people like yourselves are writing these books and talking about, you can reinvent yourself at 30, 20, 40, 70. I have, I mean, love her or hate her, I love when Oprah, it talks about, like, I didn't become Oprah till I was in my 40s. Like, that to me is like, thank you for that.
Yeah,
Thank you for that messaging. Because that's what we need. We need to remember that we can reinvent ourselves, no matter our path, no matter our past, no matter the people around us.
yeah.
But the fact that we now have a life made from scratch, and all of these other people talking on podcasts, and what are you, what are you wanting for a podcast, and what is your idea for your next book? Because I know you're coming out with a
Yeah.
different type of book.
So interesting. My next book is my first book of fiction. I've written 2 nonfiction books, and so this is fiction. In fact, I just finished writing it this week. And so it's going to go into development and
Congratulations.
which is a lot because a fiction book is much harder than a
Yeah.
like a
Keeping
mo-
all those damn characters straight.
I call it my board of lies because
I can't imagine.
I'm bored up with all of the scenes and all of the characters and their backstory because I forget, what did I say? What did I say in chapter 3?
Yeah.
Um, so I keep that all straight on a board, and thank God I do. But that book tells the story of a whistleblower and an attorney. Um, there's some mental health themes in there, and then there are some corruption themes, and then the disarray and horrifying nature of our pharma companies and our healthcare insurance system. And so it really points that out. And I incorporate these technical things I know from being in Congress and being in healthcare that will horrify people, right? And I hope it creates change. So that's why I wrote that book.
So it's a
Um,
catalyst for change
yeah,
still.
yeah,
Can't
still,
help yourself.
and hopefully it entertains. That's why I tell stories a lot, because
Yeah.
when you entertain people or make them think, that's the best thing in the world, right? So, and then the podcast is in development right now. I kind of have the North Star of I want to help people think about things. We can be candid and kind, right? We can be very open about things and tell the God's honest truth, but also say, like, look, that ain't working the way it's working, right? And so there will be a political bent to it. There will be a humanity bent to it, because you know what? People forget the politicians are just humans, and we all operate within the sphere of our own humanity. Now, I
Yeah.
will say, when you go to Congress, many people lose their humanity. They really do. It's very sad. It breaks my heart. They turn into like that's what I keep coaching candidates right now. It's like, don't talk like a robot. Don't talk like a robot.
Love the story.
Right? Yeah. Act like humans. Uh,
Yeah.
so so I think that's what the essence, and the podcast is taking a little while to brew, but it's usually good when that happens, right? Like I'm taking my time with it. So it will probably be out later this year, but I'm taking my time with it because my partner is a large media company, and sometimes they're a little unbending.
Yeah. You have to make sure it's on your terms. As it sounds like your whole life is you've worked to make sure that no bullies enter your vortex. And that means companies and humans alike. Well,
Right.
I so appreciate you being here. I'm so excited about your book. It is available everywhere.
Yeah.
Amazon,
And
everywhere.
I'm recommending to everybody, if you can get it on bookshop.org or Barnes and Noble, that would be my favorite, because that other place I'm boycotting right now. So if you can.
Okay, you're in the process of boycotting that too. I
Yeah,
haven't been in Target in like forever, and I'm just like mesmerized. I'm like, ooh, they are actually
because I
losing
love
money.
Target. Like, right, I'm sad. I love,
I
love, love.
know. I love Target, and I haven't
Listen,
been there
I
in
haven't been
months.
I haven't been there since early January.
Yeah.
Nor has my husband. I've broken him off that chain too. But also too, if you need anything, go to marienewmanstudio.com, because I have other content on there, and my blog and my community newsletter is on there and all of that. So marienewmanstudio.com, you can get books on there, other information.
Awesome. And she's available. Maria is available to speak to women's groups, political groups, LGBTQ plus groups, family groups, you name it. So if you are looking for a powerful female speaker who has been in Congress, who has been a CEO, who has done the activist, who is an author, who's done the work, who's been fighting with that pink book bag. I think we need pink book bags. I think that's like your signature piece now that we've spoken about this. I think we need to have like
My new logo.
the tote, the pink tote. It's gonna
Oh, very modern, right? Yeah.
right. It's like very modern, like feminist, but also still we know we beat people with that. It's like if necessary, like it's kind of badass.
Really hard sides. Yeah.
I like kind of love that for you. Like we're just gonna brand you the pink bag. But thank you so much for being here and sharing with us. And we'll be watching for you on all the major networks coming out and wherever your podcast ends up. I'm excited to hear from you with that. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. It was a delight. And thank you to all the listeners out there that listened in. Have a great day.
Thank you. Don't go anywhere though, okay? Thanks for listening. If you would like to connect on a more personal level, head over to meredithwillits.com or on Instagram at Meredith with a Y for behind-the-scene footage and outtakes. Please subscribe and come back each week for more Meredith with a Y. Thanks again for listening. Cheers.